Welcome back to MMA Al Dente. I am the guy who wishes there was more footage on Josiah Harrell. And I'm here to talk about Josiah Harrell versus Della Madellena. Josiah's 7-0 as a pro, 6-0-1 as an amateur. He's 24 years old, and I believe he's given up 5 inches of height and 6 inches of reach to 26-year-old Della Madellena, who is 14-2 and on a 14-fight winning streak. But yeah, he's up against it here, Josiah. Credit to him and Jack for taking this fight on short notice. You know, Jack's got a lot more to lose, of course, but Josiah Harrell has a lot more teeth to lose, potentially. So, takes balls. I'll get into Josiah Harrell, what I've seen from him here. 7-0 as a pro. He's got all finishes, 4 knockouts, 3 submissions. And those finishes come 2 in round 1, 3 in round 2, and 2 in round 3. Which is pretty good for a young fighter to have finishes deeper in the fight. And his amateur record, again, is 6-0-1. I haven't seen any amateur fights. I haven't seen really anything aside from his last 2 fights, I believe. The LFA fight at LFA 160, and then the fight before that against Tracy Reeder, whatever organization that was in. But from what I've seen of him, he's got good traits as a fighter, but his overall skills are not up to par, you know. As a fighter, in the Tracy Reeder fight, he really impressed me because that was a fight in which he was out-wrestled. Speaking of which, Josiah Harrell is a wrestler. That's his primary discipline. He's a wrestler first and foremost, and he's one of these wrestlers that I think is going to have a hard time being a wrestler in MMA. You know, with his short stature, giving up the leverage. I think he's going to have a hard time getting inside for takedowns and a really hard time finishing them once he starts fighting better athletes. But he's already had a tough time in his, the few fights I've seen him in. But that guy, Tracy Reeder, let me get back to that. That was an impressive fight because Tracy Reeder was dominating him, ripping him to the mat. And Josiah was sound defensively, wasn't really, was kind of thwarting attacks from Tracy Reeder. But then he got up against the cage and he got kneed. And he looked like he went down, but it was an illegal knee. He put his hands down. There was some gamesmanship because of the stupid fucking rule. I don't know why they can't just allow knees to the fucking head. But anyway, I think a point was taken from Tracy Reeder. The fight was restarted. He was taken down again. Looked like he was being overwhelmed, but he kept himself in the fight. Solid defense. Then he got up, ripped Tracy Reeder to the mat, and instantly finished him. Took mount, took back mount, and got him out of there. It was an incredibly impressive finish. Even though it wasn't the most impressive performance that makes me think the highest of his skill set, he still showed a lot of good traits as a fighter. Because the last thing a wrestler wants to do is be on his back. But he seemed pretty comfortable there, and once he turned the tables, it was over. It's kind of like Kevin Randleman versus Randy Couture. One guy could handle being on the bottom, the other guy couldn't. Although there was a little cardio issue as well, maybe. In both fights, the Tracy Reeder fight as well. But, yeah, he got the mount, got the TKO. Also got a solid mount finish, back mount on Josiah Harrell. I'm sorry, Mike Roberts. He is Josiah Harrell. But Josiah got a solid finish in the win over Mike Roberts at LFA 160. That guy's not the greatest fighter. Total journeyman, 50-50 record. But he's still got almost 20 fights. And Josiah was able to get him out of there in round 3. That's also a fight where he double-legged him through the cage door, which that was his best takedown in that fight. I don't know if it counted or whatever, but that was an awesome blast double leg deep into the fight. And it was really impressive because before that, he wasn't really dominating with the wrestling. He got him down twice, but it was with knockdowns. He rocked the guy at first and had him, out on his feet almost, and then took him down, which shows his instincts as a fighter. He, he wants to get you down. He had the guy dancing on his feet, and instead of pouncing on him, he shot him for a takedown. And then in the next round, he knocked him down with a big left hand, and that's how he got the takedown there. So his wrestling, even though it's weaker than it should be on paper, I think, because even in the grappling matches I've seen him in, he was being straight up out-wrestled. Guy ripping a single leg and him being out-wrestled and put on his back. But he still had a blast double leg there for him in round 3, which was impressive. Here in this fight, I haven't seen enough of him to really pick him to win, to bet on him even. I'm certainly picking Jack Della Madellena to win. But I've seen enough from his striking recently, his last fight, his last 2 fights, I believe, to know that he's not going to be doing well with Jack Della Madellena. Not doing well at all. Jack Della Madellena is going to find his range and beat him up pretty quickly. I imagine this being a pretty dominant win, in which Jack Della Madellena pours it on and gets a late first round finish. That's my prediction. It's not my bet. I guess maybe I'll throw a sprinkle on Josiah Harrell when I get drunk enough. But again, I haven't seen enough from him to really pick against Jack Della Madellena. Jack, he's got 2 losses there in the first 2 fights of his career. Lost this guy Alden Bates in the 3rd round from the full mount and avenged it a year or 2 later via knockout. And his second fight, he lost via rear naked choke pretty quickly to this guy Darcy. I wasn't able to see that one. But Jack, we've seen him handle plenty of really good fighters. He was in such a deep submission against Ramazan Amaev a few years ago, 2 years ago, whatever, or maybe a year and a half ago, and came out of that and just beat the shit out of him shortly thereafter. And we've seen him steamroll many good fighters already. Danny Roberts, Randy Brown, Angelusa, he didn't steamroll him, but he, beat him up, did well in that fight. And Pete Rodriguez, maybe not the best victory, but, he got him out of there in round 1. I think Jack is just going to beat the shit out of him. Josiah is a guy who is a wrestler first and foremost, and I think his wrestling is going to be weaker than he wants it to be in this fight and in every other fight. So that's how I see it. I wish I was able to see more footage on Josiah Harrell, but nevertheless, I think my pick would remain the same. Jack Della Madellena is that fucking good, and he should steamroll this guy. Like, share, subscribe, all that horseshit. Check out my other videos.